orders to your subcontractors, that those are accurate. Who's checking that? When the products come in from your subcontractors or get turned over to the government, who's verifying that those shipments occurred? Who's verifying that the government received them and that you've got an acceptance document? Who's taking that acceptance document and saying to the invoicing people, hey, we need to invoice for this product or service? If you have deliverables that you have to turn into government, reports, status reports, milestone charts, whatever, who's checking the accuracy of those? So this whole notion of quality is something that you either have to have existing systems in place today, or you have to put in systems to make sure you're compliant. We talked about acceptance and invoicing. Who's going to actually run these programs? So sometimes the government has firm fixed price requirements, right? You know exactly what you have to deliver over the life of the contract, so you can plan for that accordingly. If you need to bring people in, you can hire them, and you know you'll have them for the duration, or you have to replace them, right? So you know what your requirements are. But sometimes the government does cost reimbursable, where today, you know, I might need 5 of your people, and tomorrow I might need 10 of your people, but then next week it might go down to 2. How are you going to manage those fluctuations in the government requirements? Somebody's got to be a program manager to ensure that you have the right staff with the right qualifications to meet these requirements. So that's the program management piece. If you're a large company and you have other groups within your company that are going to support you on this federal business, you need to enter into some sort of service level agreements with your internal organizations. And you want to make sure that the parts of the government requirements get flowed down to them, just like you would flow them down to your subcontractors. Because those organizations within your company are going to be providing the same services that your subcontractors would. You want to treat them to make sure that you get the same thing back from them that you need. You need to have maybe a purchasing department. Because when I talked about this idea of why can't I give all the contracts to my sister, the reason being was that the government has to see that I'm running full and open competitions and that people have shots at this. You have to document that whole process. And the government comes in and audits your ability to run those competitions, to put those RFPs out. How do you put together your source selection plan? How do you make an award decision? Documenting everything. They come in and review your documentation. And if you fail a CPSR audit, you no longer have the right to buy this pen on behalf of the government. So normally, when I'm a program manager and I need to buy X number of things to support this government contract, I can just go off and buy them and charge the government for it. If I fail my CPSR, basically the government doesn't trust me to buy for them anymore, and I have to put like a scarlet letter on every proposal I put in saying, oh, by the way, every purchase I make, you, contracting officer, you have to approve it. So for this 59-cent pen, they have to approve it before I can buy it. So CPSR is a big thing. We'll talk about it later, but it's just something that you need to keep in mind because they want to make sure you're doing fair enough. I can tell you had a question.
Well, but you brought up the RFP. So would that be every case where you're the prime contractor working subcontractor?
Correct.
Okay.
Unless you're a sub bringing in other subs.
Okay.
You have to have some form of proposal development process. How are you going to bring, you're already busy, right? And now you're going to add government proposals on top of it. So you've got to manage that. You have to figure out how you're going to price things. Because typically, your pricing for your commercial customer and your pricing for the government is going to be different. So you have to figure out what your pricing is going to look like. You have to figure out what your solutions are, right? What is the solution you're going to provide? And then we've talked about the GSA schedule. So again, these are just bullet points to be thinking about. We'll talk about them in detail when we get there. Okay, now I want to talk about this concept because it plays out. Anybody watch War Dogs yesterday? Anybody did their homework? Naughty. Okay, so primitive contract. So we keep talking about this structure. The government, the prime contractor, and then if you have these various subs. privity means contractual relationship. So there is a contractual relationship between the government and the prime contractor. What is that contractual relationship called? It begins with a P. Looks like this word. Prime contract, exactly. So the contractual agreement is the prime contract between the government and the prime contractor. Good. There's also privity of contract between prime contractor and subcontractor 1, and prime contractor and subcontractor 2, and prime contractor and subcontractor 3. What are those contractual relationships called? Subcontracts. But there is no contract relationship between the government and any of these subs. There's no contract relationship between the government and the subs. The relationship exists here, and the relationship exists there, but not between the government and the sub. Which is why if the government, if you're a subcontractor on a government contract, and they have a problem with you, they're not coming to you. They're going to go to your to the prime contractor, because the prime contractor is who they have a relationship with. And the prime contractor is going to come to you because you have a contract with, or you have a subcontract with the prime contractor. The only time this isn't the case I wish you would have watched War Dogs yesterday, because I feel like I'm going to ruin it for you. The only time this is not the case is when the subcontractor is not getting paid by the prime contractor. The sub can go directly to the government and get paid. So I'm going to talk about War Dogs for a second. In the case of War Dogs, I told you the prime contractor was doing all sorts of illegal things. And in one case, they they were just buying little things for the government, like a couple guns here, a couple guns there, here a gun, there a gun, everywhere a gun. And everything, they were doing fine. But when they decided to get greedy, and they went to Las Vegas, because let's face it, all good things happen in Las Vegas. And ladies, this is where Bradley Cooper makes his appearance. And Bradley Cooper finds them in this big DoD-wide conference and says, I understand you're interested in going after this huge deal, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And these two guys, little tiny companies, say, oh, well, we would like to, but we can't buy the stuff that the government needs. They needed ammunition. And Bradley Cooper says, I got that problem solved. He said, what do you mean? I have warehouses filled with the ammunition that the DoD is asking for. And these guys are like, really? Well, how much would you charge us for? I'll charge you pennies on the dollar. Okay, anybody see a problem? Why can't Bradley Cooper do this deal himself? Because he's on the terrorist watch list. So these guys are naive enough to get involved with Bradley Cooper. And they go to the location in, I think it was in Afghanistan.
I think it was
Iraq?
Iraq. I think so.
Yeah, and they, where the munitions were, the warehouses were?
Oh no, that's just the number.
Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to think what country it was.
I think it was Russia.
Yeah, see, I think it was like a,
Well, it wasn't that, but what happens is they get over, and the reason why I say that is because that's where the, 1 second. So they go over to actually inspect these munitions, and they pull out a box, and it says on the side of the box, made in the USA, and they pull it out and they're looking at all these bullets. And the two guys are like, yeah, this is great. So they go ahead and they enter into this contract with the government, and Bradley Cooper gives them a great deal on the bullets, and lo and behold, before they make an award decision, the Pentagon wants to see these two guys. And of course, what better thing to do when you're going to go into the Pentagon and meet with generals about a hundreds of millions of dollar procurement, you get high before you go. So the guys get high, they go in for the meeting, and what the general can't understand is why they came in $50 million cheaper than the next highest bidder. Problem one, right? And of course, the guys are ticked off and hitting the side of the walls of the Pentagon. And now they have to, because they've undercut the bid, and they can't get that money back, so they've left that money on the table. So now they have to start performing on the contract. They start performing, and the first thing they realize when they go back to that warehouse is the one box that they pulled out that said Made in USA, the rest of the boxes says Made in good old China. And there's foreign munitions laws that say you can't buy Chinese bullets. And so these guys have warehouses full of Chinese bullets that they cannot deliver on a US government contract. But fear not. They figure out a way. And the answer is in Ziploc bags. They get Ziploc bags and they take millions of bullets and take them out of the cases that say made in China, put them in Ziploc bags, and they deliver them to the US government. No problem there, right? And the people that they get, Afghanistan, that's what it was. They hire like 3 Afghani men to take these million bullets out of the boxes and put them into the Ziploc bags. And they are, they do that, and they deliver, and no problem. DOD doesn't suspect anything, everything's fine. And then fast forward, several years later, the guys are, the government is tipped off. So they have gotten away with murder all the way up until this point. Like nothing, and everything I'm teaching you, they violated everything, okay? And they got away with it. Until the FBI gets a call. And why does the FBI get a call? Because the 3 Afghani men got screwed by the prime contractor and didn't get paid. And when you think about this hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollar contract, what the Afghani men were getting was like $100,000. It was a drop in the bucket. But they didn't get paid, and because of this law that says the subcontractor can only go back to the prime contractor if they're not getting paid, these 3 guys, can you see how this phone call went? Hello, DOD? We did not get paid. And that is what triggered the downfall of AEY. Because had that phone call not been made, because of this law I'm telling you about right here, the FBI would have never been on to this company and all the crazy that they had provided, or all the crazy that they had done. So there's still some other kicks to the movie, so I didn't, there's other things that you really should watch the movie for, but it was really interesting that here's this little tiny caveat in the laws that caused the downfall of that.
There will be a showing here today after class, War Dogs, on Amazon Video, right there for those who want to stick around and watch.
There you go.
We'll make arrangements for that. It's not on Netflix, Amazon Video, but we'll be showing it today right after this class for those who want to stay and watch it.
So in order to sell to the government, you have to be involved in the SAM system. We used to call it the Central Contractor Registry. Now it's part of the SAM system, and we'll be doing the SAM system tomorrow. But basically, what the system does is it collects, validates, stores, and disseminates all the information in support of agency acquisition. So basically, this is the one-stop shopping place that the government goes to verify that you're a federal contractor. They also put all, when you're doing grants or cooperative agreements, all those are in there as well. If you go to an event and somebody, you're talking to them about what your company does, and they say, oh, I need that, and I'm just going to put it on a purchase card, you don't need to be in CCR. If your contract with the government is classified, you don't have to be in CCR. If they're doing any sort of emergency operations, when anything is a crisis in the federal government, they can blow through a lot of these requirements because they just need to get the stuff in place. If it's unusual and compelling needs, we just talked about, if it's a foreign vendor for work performed outside of the United States, so when our State Department officials, for example, need to have different things bought in foreign countries, they don't have to have it, or if it's a micro purchase. But any other, so it's in your best interest to register in SAM. These are the kinds of things you need to have. Does everybody have a DUNS number? okay? Your legal business name, or if you're doing business as, you need that information. Your federal tax ID number, do you have your EIN or your TIN number? That would be something else you have to have. Your business start date, when does your fiscal year end in your company? What's your average number of employees, your annual receipts, your NAICS code, and your cage code. So basically, for every location that you have different cage code. There's 3 places to look for opportunities. We have a section on this. One is the Federal Procurement Data System. So there's a system that GSA has if you have GSA schedules that you can find opportunities. FedBizOpps is the one place that all federal opportunities are listed. So when you're looking for RFPs, this is the place you go. And then GSA has different multiple award contracts. This is your primary. Once you have your, if you have a GSA schedule, what you do is you have your price list and your product descriptions. You upload that into something called GSA Advantage, which is like an online mall in the sky, and federal agencies can go to GSA Advantage and find you. So it's passive marketing for you, which is a reason to get a GSA schedule. There are some opportunities available through the Small Business Administration. That is another place you can look. And then these various certification programs that we've been talking about. Those have those set-aside programs. So those are all the places that you find opportunities. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break. We'll pick back up.